My name is John Giles. I was diagnosed with MS about 5 years ago, and my bishop told me that he had a relative that was recently diagnosed and was suffering from fatigue. Fatigue is one of the common symptoms. The most common symptom over all MS patients is fatigue. The differences in what you'll go through, what people will go through, is vast. It's a neurological disease, and if you think of how many neurons are in the body, how many neurological pathways are in the body, that is the different amounts of complications you can have in your trials with MS. And so it's hard sometimes when somebody tries to say, oh, I understand what you're going through because my uncle has it, or something like that. It actually is not quite offensive, but I hate hearing that because it just shows that they don't understand the disease. The disease can affect somebody in a small way, it can affect somebody in a large way. Some people can live almost perfectly normal lives, still being active, playing sports, just living their lives as normal. All the way up to you're stuck in a chair and you're going to die within a couple years. That's how vast the differences in MS are. One of the things that he told me was that this person was experiencing the fatigue portion, which I said is the most common of all MS symptoms. That was actually one of the first things to go with me as well. When I started this journey with MS, before I was highly active, a lot thinner, played basketball like a fiend. That was kind of my life. And that slowly just started dropping off. I didn't have the energy or the willpower to get myself onto the court, even though it was something I loved. And I went from playing almost every day to a couple days a week to 1 day a week to, now I don't play at all because I can't. There are complications that arise, and what your symptoms will be entirely different than what mine are. And so I'm going to share with you some of my experiences, some of the things that have happened to me, and then also share this energy. Well, I don't know what to call this. My sister shared an analogy with me with spoons, and that's in a book somewhere, and it's a good analogy. I take it a step further because I think it needs more defining. Okay? And so let's just jump straight into this. So as you can see, I have blocks of different colors. I have green, yellow, and red. Okay, these represent the levels of fatigue, the levels of energy that we have. Obviously, I kind of do like the stoplight. Green is good, yellow is warning, red is danger. And some people, maybe you're colorblind, I don't know, because like if Colomore's watching this, he might be, they all look the same to me. So the ones on the left will be the green, the ones on the right will be the red, the ones in the middle will be the yellow. Okay? Now, in the average person, I'm just going to go off an average. It'll vary between, more or less, who knows. But for your average person, you have 16 blocks. Okay, the green blocks represent good energy. It represents your ability to function during the day. Each activity that we perform will cost a couple blocks. For the average person that has this many blocks, let's say they go to work and they work hard. So we're going to take out some of these blocks. Okay? And they have this many blocks left. Okay? Let's say they want to go play ball after work. Okay? And when we're doing an activity such as playing ball, a sport, something that's a little more strenuous, those blocks will double up. So let's say they want to play for a couple hours, they're going to use 4 of their blocks of energy. That energy is gone. Now let's say they get home and their wife says, hey, it's time to mow the lawn. And so they say, okay, I'll do that. It's going to cost me 2 blocks per hour. It's going to take me about an hour to get that lawn done. I have 3 blocks left for the day. What are we going to do? And she says, hey, let's go out. Let's go do something for a couple hours. You get, boom, your 2 energy blocks are gone. You have 1 left. And you can use that for whatever. Let's say it's an activity, playing with the kids or whatever it might be. You use that up. Okay, once you use up your green blocks here, then you jump into your yellow blocks. If you expend more energy beyond the green blocks, you jump into the yellow blocks. For the average person, what this means is your perception time, your cognitive abilities are a little bit lowered. You don't think as fast. You don't move as fast. You're fatigued, but you can keep pushing. One of the things that I talked with Bishop Isaacson about was that energy level, and he states, he told me, he's like, and I love his attitude because he's like, I don't understand it, so explain this to me. So when we get into the yellow, that is kind of a zone where you want to avoid pretty much at all costs, but you get there, and he was telling me that he can do that. So let's say that he pushes through. He pushes through. I'm sorry if the yellow isn't towards the camera. So he pushes through, and he uses a couple hours energy beyond his green blocks. He jumps into these yellow blocks, and he is a little bit fatigued. He's tired. Like I said, his reaction time's not as fast as it could be, but it was still okay. And he was talking to me about that, and he was saying I can stay up, 24 hours straight working, and I can do that. And then all I need is 1 day's rest, the normal 8 hours of rest, and he gets all his green blocks back. Okay, and that's a good thing. So he's able to push forward, do his job, do the things that he needs to do, and it replenishes his blocks. So his blocks are back in full force, and he's able to go the next day and do it again. Okay. Now we're going to add a complication in here. Now we're going to say it's John Giles. So let's talk about John Giles' blocks. Okay. So because of what I'm dealing with the MS, it has basically wiped away that many blocks. So for my day, I have 6 blocks to work with. Okay. Now those 6 blocks can be used in a variety of ways, but the more strenuous, the more blocks it costs. So let's say even if I did want to, and I really can't do it much anymore, but go for a walk. Okay, an hour walk would take away 4 of my blocks. Okay, that leaves me with 2 blocks for the day. Okay. And from what I understand, the person that Bishop Isaacson was talking about experienced this when they were moving, and I experienced a very similar thing to that. Your normal activities, you think, okay, I need to move all this stuff. You pick it up, you move it, you do fine. Okay? So my experience with moving. My wife, at the time she wasn't, but they were moving. They had to go to Texas. And so I went over to help them get the truck loaded. So I would carry, I think it was a bed or a dresser, some of that. But I carried 1 dresser. It was the big one that she needed help with. As soon as I carried that, I was done. I was done for the day. That used all my blocks, and I had no green blocks left at all. If I push myself beyond the green blocks, we go into these yellow blocks. These yellow blocks are a danger zone for us. What the yellow blocks are a serious warning, a serious telling of your body to stop what it's doing. So when this person that he was talking about was moving boxes and had to just sit down and felt horrible about herself because here everybody else is doing the work while she moved, a couple of boxes and just had to sit down and stop doing it. Yeah, it does make you feel bad. The other night, we were at the elders' quorum. We were doing a game night over at Nathan's house, and they had to move a piano. Before, I would have had no problem moving that piano. I would have said, "Let me take this side. You all take that side," because I still have the strength. And before, that's the way I would do it. I would have just been like, "Okay, let me have the side. You guys take that side. Let's move this thing." Instead, what I had to do is I had to sit in a chair and watch them. It makes you feel really bad. But the problem is, had I moved that piano, I was already down to that. I was already down to 2 blocks. If I had moved the piano, I would have immediately gone into the yellow. I would have started sweating. I would have been hurting. I would have been tired. I couldn't have done it. I would have gone into the yellow, which brings me to the next segment of this. When we get into the yellow, that is when danger happens. That's when our bodies betray us. A good example of this is I was at my mother's house before she had her heart surgery, and there were some late nights. I was taking care of her, the weeks before the surgery, and I fatigued myself out. I used up all my green blocks. I used them up pretty rapidly, and so I was kind of running on yellow blocks, which I'll get to times when I've been on yellow blocks that the outcome has not been good. Okay, I was on yellow blocks, which means I didn't have, I didn't have everything with me mentally, physically. And so I was coming down my stairs, and the fatigue took over, and I got to the second to the last stair, and I missed the stair completely, and fell down, broke my leg in 7 different places. It broke it pretty bad. But that was from that fatigue. I did not have the wits with me to just step on a step. My leg just kind of floated out, missed the step. I came down, broke my leg. It was a really bad break. It was, a really bad break. So let's talk about real quick the other blocks that I have. So I'm going to tell you a story about when I was going to Texas to see what is now my current life. I was going to Texas, and on that trip, it was hot, it was miserable. I rode a bus. I do not fly. I am terrified to death of flying. I do not fly. So I'm riding the bus there, and right now, little precursor to this, I am on oxygen at night. I have to wear a CPAP and oxygen. Okay, the bus ride is a full 48 hours bus ride. So I just stayed up the entire time. And besides, I can't sleep while I'm in a vehicle anyway. So I am cruising to Texas on a bus. It is incredibly hot, and the bus stops. And it says, "Oh, another bus is broken down. We're going to pick up all the passengers." And so we filled every seat in that bus to capacity. I had the seat open next to me. I slid over and made room so somebody could sit there. And, I'm a big guy. So who sits there? A lady who was bigger than me. And she sat down, and I was squished up to the side. I'm like, "How you doing?" and which is fine. But the problem is, then we started traveling. The rest of the way to Texas is about 2.5 more hours to Texas, or to Dallas, and it was miserably hot. It was cramped. just not a good experience mentally. You got to remember there's two triggers that absolutely will trigger an MS flare, and that the biggest one is stress. The second one is physical stress, but stress is the number one thing. Avoid stress at all costs. So got to Texas, riding on the bus like this. It was fine. Well, there's a problem that occurs there. I was already in the fatigue of the yellow blocks. Now I entered the red blocks. So for those 3 hours on that 3-hour bus ride to Dallas, I was in the red. The red is your danger zone. The red is when neurologically you're risking a flare-up. Give you a quick list of the flare-ups that I've had that have caused some serious problems with me. First, my arms and legs went numb. That was just a smaller one. I recovered, went back to my normal life. The second one, my legs gave out. I was basically a paraplegic. The legs went out. I had to use walls to get, to where I was going. It lasted about a month. And then my legs started coming back, and they came back, pretty well. Never full. My legs have never been normal since that. In fact, they've gotten worse, and I'll get to that later. But at the time, I wasn't diagnosed yet or anything, and so I just chalked it up to it was a pinched nerve from playing ball or something. But when you get into these red zones, you have these flares that can occur that do some permanent damage. One of the things that I have, and let me precursor this real quick with something. I hate people that whine about how bad they have it, and I'm not trying to whine. And this is more as an attempt to educate and to help you understand what I've gone through. Because you're going to go through different things. You are going to go through your own version of hell. And that's just kind of the way it is. And you have to find the things in life that make you happy. Find the things in life that you can do despite having lost a lot of things. So just a quick rundown of what I've had. Some things that have happened to me. So first, my arms and legs went numb. Second, my legs gave out. To the point of being near paraplegic. Then, this is when, who is my current, why do I keep saying that? My wife, she wasn't my wife at the time. I was at her house, and my lips started going numb, like I'd been to the dentist. Then the numbness kind of spread over my face and was going up and down, and then my left arm and left leg went numb. And that was when she finally put her foot down and said, I am taking you to the doctor. And so we went to the doctor, and I got diagnosed. And that was a stressful time. It was hard. It was hard for me to take, because I had always been so able, so capable, and to have my life physically being brought down and down and down and down. So had that flare up where I lost the arm, lost the leg, the taste. My taste disappeared. That was the hardest thing, I think, of everything. Because you don't realize how much you love tastes, how much tastes play a role in your life. And so I learned to enjoy hot and spicy things, because that was the first thing that came back, the first thing that I was able to taste. And so I would get sriracha things, I would get hot things. It just didn't matter. I wanted hot on it because that I could actually taste. Everything else was just cardboard in my mouth. And you would think that, well, since you can't taste, you're going to lose weight, right? No. Because you eat and try to find something that you can taste. Because you don't realize how much taste is a part of life. It's one of the senses. It's important. So after that, and the taste came back, luckily, the arm came back. The leg never came back fully. And so my left leg is only at about 10% capacity. My right leg is just as bad. It's pretty bad. So when I get tired, I have a hard time walking, and that's hard. Um, the other things that have happened to me on my wedding day, my legs went numb again. Everything from the waist down was going numb. Um, hard one to take. Um, I've been on 3 different medications. Started with Copaxone, and I'm rocking. I need to stop rocking. So I've been on 3 medications. Started with Copaxone, which is an injection that you stab yourself with. I call it stabbing myself. I started with the everyday shots. And then as the time progressed, they put me on the 3 times a week shots. But giving yourself shots is interesting because it's no big deal. It's a small needle. I mean, they're seriously that big, and all they have to do is just go into the skin, and you're fine. They're not an intermuscular one, whatever they call that. So it's a very shallow shot that you have to give yourself, and it's not that big of a deal. It's really easy. But at times, my mind would play tricks on me, and I would grab that needle, and it would look about as big as, what would I give? It was about 3 feet long and about that big around. And I swear my mind would play this tricks, and I would look at it, and I would see this huge shot, and I would just have to start laughing because I knew it was just my mind playing tricks on me, and I would just laugh and give myself the shot, and it was fine. It was over. So if you get put on something like Copaxone, it's not that big of a deal. It is actually really easy. The needles slide right in, and you just dump it in, and you're done. It's not hard. Next, after when you start a medicine, what they'll do is they'll keep you on that medicine until you have a flare-up, until something goes wrong. And that's the hard part, because if you see the medicine that you want, the insurance might say not until you've tried 2 others. Now, what they mean by you've tried 2 others is you have failed on 2 others. So you have to have 2 flare-ups before you can get to the medicine that you wanted to be on. So I started with Copaxone with the shots, had a flare-up. They switched medicines to Tecfidera, which is a pill, and that was easy to take. That was actually kind of cool because it was just take a pill. You didn't have to give yourself a shot. It was actually a little bit nicer. But then I had another flare-up, and they put me on Tysabri, which is a once-a-month infusion. So I have to go to the hospital once every month and have my infusion. And that is mentally trying, but I'm now 2 years without a flare-up, and the doctor was absolutely surprised because the amount of stress that I've had in my life with all the things that have gone on in my life in the past 2 years, I didn't have a flare-up. I haven't had another one. And so the doctor is like, okay, we're going to stick to this medicine. Even though there are risks to taking it, it's worth it if they can keep the flare-ups from happening. And so to me it's worth it, because while I was in Texas, and I'll get back to the Texas one because this is where we're at with these blocks, got to Texas and everything was fine. I was tired. I immediately went and took a nap. Then woke up and there was more stress added to my life. I had a phone call that was just stressful news, and it added to it. And so I was in the red already, and add a stressful situation to that, not a good combination. So while I was in Texas, my vision gave out. I went blind. Completely black blind, like no vision whatsoever in this eye. This eye went blurry and then narrowed like you were looking through a toilet paper roll. Look through a toilet paper roll, and that's what my vision was like, but blurry. So blind. So I went blind, and that is one of my worst fears in life, going blind. That's my number one fear. My number two fear is flying, which is why I can't fly. And so if I had flown back home, I probably would have had another flare up on the way home. So I didn't fly. Luckily, I was able to get to a doctor there. They did what's called a, what's the infusion called?
Prednisone?
Yeah, it's a prednisone-based infusion, a solumedrol, solumedrol infusion. And what that is it is prednisone. If you've ever taken prednisone, you'll understand it makes you jittery. It makes you hyper, maybe. I mean, it might do that to you. Makes you Superman. And when people get this infusion, they stay awake for days. And they are just energized, and they're practically glowing, because it does that to you. For some reason, my body says, no, we're going to do the opposite. So when I was getting my infusion for this, for when I went blind, my doctor called in, and I went to the ER there at First Presbyterian?
Texas Presby.
Texas Presbyterian. And fantastic hospital, fantastic doctors. They were so nice. But they're doing this infusion, and this stuff puts me to sleep. This stuff makes me a zombie. And so the nurse kept coming in and going, oh, is he okay? And my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, but my current wife, she was there. And my current wife, I keep saying my current wife, like I've had others. I have not had others. She's my first wife. I do not plan on having any more. But it is correct. She is my current wife. What can I say? So my wife said, to the nurse, don't worry about it. This is how he reacts to prednisone. So if I take prednisone, I get tired. If I get the infusion, I am out. And so there was a lot of stress, a lot of frustration and pain mentally. It was hard to take because I was living out my worst fear in life, and that is going blind. Luckily, I had great support around me. My vision did come back in this eye. This eye is still blind. It's not black, though. I can see images. I just can't see detail. But so it is blind. But I'm grateful that this eye came back. Grateful that I can use my limbs. So that's the story of the stuff that's happened to me. What might happen to you is entirely different. There are people that never have these kind of symptoms, and I hope that happens if you're dealing with this. Hopefully you don't have to deal with this kind of thing. It is hard. And, one thing that I've had a problem with is talking to other people who have it, because it's been my experience that all they want to do is complain. Like, it turns into a woe is me party. And I don't like that. I don't think it needs to be. You can discuss the complications. You can discuss the pains that it causes without saying, woe is me. Yes, it is hard. Yes, it is terrible. It is my doctor, he just looked at me and he said, this is a cruel disease. And he hit the nail right on the head with that one. It is a cruel disease. One of the things that I absolutely hate is when people look at you and they don't see, and it's not their fault, but they look at you, they don't see what's going on. They see me, they see this, 6'2", 300 and some pounds man, big and strong, and they don't see what's going on. I pull into a handicap spot and I get looks from people like, why are you in that spot? Like you have to have a wheelchair or crutches to use a handicap spot. But I park in the handicap, and if I go in, if they could see me on the way out, they would understand, because I use up all my blocks going into Walmart. So I go into Walmart, we do shopping, and all my blocks are spent. By the time I get out, I am sweating, I am My speed is literally at about 20% of what it was when I went in. I was able to walk in with a nice pace, get in there no problem, tire myself out. I can barely walk by the time I get out. And so there is a lot of prejudice that goes along with it, but it's not their fault. I understand. They see a person, they're like, you're capable, what's your problem? They don't know. And so that's something that you'll have to get used to. So yeah, so that's my quick synopsis, not too quick, but quick synopsis of MS and how the energy blocks work. Remember, avoid these red blocks at all costs. In fact, avoid those at all costs. One thing that you're going to have to learn to do is to say no. That is the hardest thing to do. Because let's say you only get 4 blocks of green for the day. And somebody wants you to do something that's going to take away all your blocks, but you already have other things to do. You have to learn to say no. One of the greatest examples of this, for me, like I said, I'm big, I'm strong. I worked at Weber State for 15 years teaching billiards, and so when they would move a table, who would they get? Me. When one needed to be leveled or lifted up so they could put stuff underneath it, who did they ask? Me. Because I could just get under the table and lift the table up. And, it's funny, my boss, he was really awesome. He understood and he sympathized and he was just like, okay, whatever you need, just let me know. And one time he was working on a table and he needed the table to be lifted up. And he looked over at me and goes, hey, John, could you? Never mind. And while it made me feel, I felt really bad not being able to help, it made me feel good that he understood that, he didn't press the issue and he was just like, don't worry about it, I got it. Found somebody else and got it fixed. And that's what you're going to have to learn to do. You're going to have to learn to say no. If you only have 4 blocks for the day, learn how to spend them. And if somebody wants you to do something that's going to take away those blocks and take away what you had planned, you have to learn to say no and not feel bad about it. Okay? So if there are any questions, let me know. Either post it in here. I'm going to post this both on YouTube and on Facebook. So if you have a question or anything, just send it to me. And like I said, I don't get into the woe is me thing. This is what it is, and it's what we have to deal with. The big thing is having people understand that. And that is your number one goal. Just make sure the people around you understand you cannot do what you used to do. And if they can't deal with it, too bad. All right. Thank you. Any questions, let me know. Bye.